You have your script, you've finished pre-production, it's time for you to make a movie, homie. What's up, friends? It's the Nerdy Filmmaker here, and today is part 3 of a 4-part series about the different phases of making a film. And today we're talking about production. If you haven't seen the development and the pre-production videos, I'm gonna leave them in the description. We all know somewhat how a film set works, but I thought I'd just go through the kind of like workflow, the key things that you need, and some tips to remember as you're going through your production. So first off, I'm gonna talk about the documents that you're gonna want to have ready for your shoot days. In my opinion, there are 3 key documents that you need for any shoot, and you're gonna need them for every specific day. The first one is the call sheet. You're gonna want a call sheet, and that call sheet needs to go out, at least by union standards, at least 12 hours before the set call time. Hopefully you have these ready and you can send them out even a day or 2 or 3 ahead of schedule. That'd be wonderful. But you do need a call sheet for every single day, and what the call sheet is going to present is every person's individual call time. It's going to show the location, it's going to show the schedule of the day, and that includes any kind of location movements. It's gonna show when lunch is. It's also gonna be showing details about the location, where it's situated, where the nearest hospital is. It shows the contact information for the key people that cast and crew might need to reach if there's a question or a problem. It has a lot of information, but most of the time what cast and crew is really looking at is their individual call times and wrap times. You might have staggered call times because you're gonna need certain people in earlier. Otherwise, if you have everyone come at the same time, there might be a lot of waiting around and people might not be happy with that, and you might be paying for extra time that you didn't need to. So call sheets, very important. Now, the second thing you're gonna want is your shot list. And if you remember, I told you need to have your shot list ready. So this is a document that you're gonna wanna have on hand. This is really going to be for the director and for art and for camera, the assistant director, anyone who wants to see what's coming up next and needs to know what the next shot is and a description of those shots. You're going to want to have the shot list on hand, multiple copies, so print them ahead of time. Some people might prefer it digitally, which is great, saves paper, but you at the very least, as a filmmaker, you're going to want to have your shot list on hand so that you can know what you're doing next. And that also leads to the third most important document, is the schedule. So if your shot list is there for you to reference what every individual thing is, your schedule is there to time them out for what the day is going to look like. Now, sometimes the schedule might just fit everything in that all the description that you would have on your shot list. So maybe you just need a detailed schedule and you can kind of leave the shot list aside because it's already baked into the schedule. But as long as you know the order of shots, and you want to have that as a paper on set so that you can cross things out as you go. So all the information is laid out and you and your assistant director can keep on pace. I would also recommend before you go into your day of shooting that you know what are your most essential shots and what are ones that can maybe either be combined or removed altogether, because it always happens that you end up behind schedule. And so unless you can pay for overtime, if you need to cram in all the shots within a given amount of time, and you have to be out of, let's say, a location by, you can't stay past 5. You need to know what are the essentials to tell the story and what are the ones that you just want. And it would suck to cut those, but you have to be ready to do it on the fly. I do have a video about shot listing and a video about scheduling, and I'm gonna leave links to those in the description as well. Oh yeah, make sure you have some printed scripts on set too. Okay, that's also pretty important. Someone should always have a script on hand in case they need a line reference. Maybe the actor forgot the line or whatever. So someone should have a script on set. That's usually continuity, but someone needs to have the script ready and on hand. Next, when you arrive at a location, you need to know everything about that location, and that information needs to be ready to be disseminated amongst all the cast and crew. That's going to include parking, like where are people parking, and they should know about that ahead of time. Like I said, you need to know where the nearest hospital is in case of an emergency, but you also need to know where the bathrooms are. There needs to be bathrooms accessible, so you need to know where those are so you can direct people to them. You need to know where the outlets are, and really important, you need to know where the breakers are, because it might just happen that you've loaded up a circuit with too much stuff and a breaker breaks. The electricity gets cut, you have to go flip a breaker, you need to know where that is, how to access it. Otherwise, you're screwed. So know your locations, know the layout, know where every person is supposed to go to set up, and where they can go take a pee-pee break. I would also say when you get to a location, and this is really the art department's job, but sometimes they forget or sometimes it's nice to have your own. I really encourage you to take pictures of every space that you are going to be in, whether that is set or your like costume holding space or whatever. Take pictures in every direction and take pictures of specific things that you might be moving so you know exactly where they're going to go back. Make sure that when you leave a location, you leave it just the way you found it, if not better, cleaner than before. It's also really important to have pictures for your own insurance reasons, because if someone claims that you've scratched up a really expensive desk or something like that, but you have the pictures to prove that those scratches were already there, they can't, hold it against you. But make sure that you take care of all the surfaces, walls, floors in that space. If you're going to be using some tables that are there and you're putting equipment on it or whatever, make sure you're covering those tables. Really take care of the space so you don't have to pay for repairs or whatever. So when you get to your location, you're going to want a separate area for each individual department. You're going to want a costume area, a hair and makeup area, an art area, camera area, and you're going to want an area for your data transfer as well. So this is if you're going to be doing a lot of shooting in this space and you know you're going to need to dump your footage halfway through, maybe over lunch, you're going to want to make sure that you have a table specifically set up for a laptop, the hard drives, anything you need for those data transfers. And I would encourage no liquids near any of these things, any of these tables. I usually have a very strict no liquid rule near any of the equipment, any of the electronics, and I would assume that costumes would appreciate it as well, so no one spills coffee on one of the costumes. So once each of these departments have their area to store equipment, store costumes, lay out all the props, all that kind of stuff, it's time to get to work. Now, simultaneously, lighting and art are going to be working in the actual filming space. They'll probably end up setting up together. Sometimes one needs to be done before the other because they kind of influence each other in a way. But those things are usually happening in tandem. Camera is setting up maybe like their tripod and their camera, and they're putting the whole rig together. And eventually they will bring it into the set. And that's also going to be important because art and lighting needs to actually see through the frame to make final adjustments. So they'll kind of set up global art and global lighting, and then they're going to start to fine tune once camera makes its way in. Camera is not usually there right from the start because it just takes up space. So it's kind of like a general global setup, and then when the camera comes in with the right lens and the whatever for the first shot, then they'll start to make adjustments. Now, depending on the scale of your setup, this can take half an hour, it can take 2.5 hours. And that's why it's important to know that different people have different call times, because if you only have 2 actors in the scene, there's no reason to call them in at the same time as everyone else and have them waiting for 2 hours. So you stagger your call times, you have the actors come in. When they come in, right when you're ready for them, when their time starts, you send them into costume and makeup and hair. And then when they're done that, you bring them to set and you start doing rehearsals of the scene within the space. Sometimes I like to run a rehearsal right when they get there before they go into hair and makeup, because seeing them act in the space for the first time might offer some challenges based on the space, based on what the camera team had, originally thought. Maybe you want to change some of the blocking, so that's going to change some of the lighting. So you kind of run the full scene with them once, and then I send them off to costume and makeup while we do final adjustments on set. Great, off they go to get gussied up. I'm going to tell you the most important role that you need to have on your set, especially if you're a first or second time filmmaker, and especially if it's a big production. You want an assistant director. Now, I joke that I don't need an assistant director. It's half a joke, but I 100% encourage everyone has an assistant director. It's probably one of the most important, if not the most important role on set in order to get your film made, because it happens so often that there's so many people working on their own individual things that when they're done, they kind of just like start chatting and this and that, and people forget to communicate. And the assistant director's job really on set is to make sure everyone's communicating through them if they need to, and making sure everyone is respecting the schedule. It's about rushing people, not, dangerously, but making sure people are pushed to make things on time so that you can stick to the schedule, and sending people to makeup, sending people to set, asking art how much longer they need so that they can tell the lighting department how much longer they have. It's all about communication, and the AD is really the center of all of that communication. So make sure you have an AD on set, because otherwise, if you are, it happens often that like a director of photography or a director will want 8 takes or want to really get that lighting perfect but ultimately, if you're spending an extra half hour tweaking a little light to get the thing perfect, you've probably just lost a shot. It's really up to the director, and the assistant director needs to be talking with the director to keep them appraised of timing and of how everyone's doing so that you can be making decisions together. Now, you've been working for a few hours. It's time for lunch, right? So when you're doing your catering, I always prefer to have healthy things on set. If I get to a set of an indie film or whatever and they're handing out pizza, I'm such not a fan of that. No one feels energetic after pizza. You want to make sure that you have healthy food, things that are going to give people energy and not make them crash. Make sure there's snacks as well. You know, snacks are super important. People get hungry, and it's a nice thing to do while you're waiting for things, is to kind of go have a couple of crackers or granola bar or whatever. And I will say there is a tendency I have found in people, your crew, to not eat. Between lunch and wrap time, let's say that's like a 5-hour section. If you leave snacks out, so it happened, we had a bunch of snacks, and we had like including a bowl of carrots, baby carrots, and no one was eating them. They would walk into the room, they would get their gear, and they'd walk back out. They wouldn't eat. But we all know food makes people happy. So what did I do? I picked up the bowl. I was not directing this project, by the way. The director shouldn't be doing this. Maybe, someone else on set who has some time, ideally a PA. And I walked into the room with this huge bowl of baby carrots, and I went to every single person and I said, would you like some carrots? And even though they had just walked by it 5 times, the fact that I brought it to them and handed it to them, don't ask them, hey, are you hungry? I'll go get you something. Bring them the thing. Then it's a lot harder for them to resist and say like, oh, I'm just focusing on, no, like if you give them the food, they will eat. And I went back to the cafeteria and I put down an empty bowl. They'd eaten all the carrots in one round. So keep people fed, bring them water. Same thing for the actors who are sitting there. Have someone, come by with a bunch of water or whatever. Do you want some water? And that actually leads me to my next thing, is that I think we should all be doing our best in every facet of our lives, but I think because it's a filmmaking channel, we should talk about the filmmaking process. We should be doing our best to make our sets as green as possible. On our sets, we plead with people to bring their own mugs. Bring your own mugs and bring your own, reusable bottles of water. Ideally, you have these things on set. It reduces the amount of garbage, and that's great for both having to take out garbage, but also it just is better for the environment. So get a big coffee maker or whatever. If you have to get a box from Tim Hortons, fine, but ask for no cups, or 3 cups just for those who forget. And everyone else fills up their coffee directly into their reusable mugs. If you have to use disposables for whatever reason, make sure you have a marker on set so people can label their cups, because they forget where they leave it and then they just take a new one, and in the end you're a cast and crew of 20 and you've somehow used 50 cups. Do it for me. Try to keep that stuff in mind. I think we should all be doing our part. Once you're done in the space, once you've wrapped up, whether it's your first location of the day and you're making a move, or you're just finishing for the day and you're putting everything away, if you're done in that location, you check those pictures, make sure everything is put back just as they were. Everyone's wrapping up their stuff. People should only be touching the stuff in their department. So the lighting department should be focusing on the lighting, and the camera department should be focused on the camera and costume on their stuff. Because if you're moving stuff without the other department knowing where you've put it, then you have a higher chance of losing things. That being said, you can offer your help. Only start moving things once that department knows you are helping move that thing, so they know who to ask if they can't find where you put that wire. Last important thing, get 2 people to do 2 rounds of the space. Look at every outlet, look at every surface, look under tables, look everywhere to see if anything was forgotten. It's possible a battery fell out of something and got kicked under a table. Maybe someone forgot their iPhone charger in one of the walls. Who knows? Double check the space, make sure you have everything, every sandbag, every apple box, every thing, every power bar. Make sure you've found them all and you've collected them, especially if you're renting them so you can actually give them back. And of course, if you're working with the Actors Union, make sure you have sign-out sheets ready for the actors so they can sign in and out, and you also put down the times they had lunch and when they were in costume and all that kind of stuff, so that you have a very clear record that they can sign at the end to say, yep, those are right. So you have all your documents done and you've done your day of shooting, and you can go home and pass that F out. Hot damn, this ended up being a bigger video than I thought it was gonna be, but I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions about production, let me know in the comments, and I'll hopefully have an answer for them. Next week, we're talking post-production, all the different steps in post-production. Again, if you haven't seen the development or pre-production videos, it's in the description. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, commenting. Everything helps this channel and encourages me to continue creating these videos. You know, I'm not just making them for myself, I'm making them for you. All right, friends? Hey, I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Camera off.